Good afternoon again to everyone joining us. Martin, thank you so much for tuning in. How are you today?
Thank you, Andrew. Good morning, and good morning to everyone joining this live webinar.
Perfect. Yes, I see on my phone we're live on LinkedIn. We're live all over the place. So, Martin, I think it's best time we get started. And as always, I like to start just with quick introductions. So my name is Andrew Barden. I'm the CEO of the Kenyan Wall Street, based here in Westlands, Nairobi, at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Martin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you to the Kenyan Wall Street for hosting this. My name is Martin Gitonga. I am currently the head of network planning and partnerships for Kenya Airways.
Yes, it's an absolute pleasure, Martin. Thank you. So I think we can just hop right into it, Martin. I'm curious, network planning and alliances, what exactly does that mean in your role at Kenya Airways?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew, and it's a good question. I would like to demystify because I get a lot of inquiries from IT-related people. So here, network planning has nothing to do with IT. Under me, I have a network, which is basically the destinations portfolio that Kenya Airways does fly to, or the 45 destinations we currently fly to. I also have under my portfolio the schedules planning, which basically ensures that we have the up-to-date live schedule selling globally through all our partners. Under me also is the alliances portfolio, which houses the SkyTeam Alliance, Global Alliance, along with 106 other partners that we work with, airline-to-airline partnerships. And finally, under me also there's optimization, which takes care of the charters portfolio in Kenya Airways, amongst other things, which includes mostly optimizing the network. So it's a big task, but I have a wonderful team that helps me to accomplish this on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I imagine you require quite a substantial team in order to get that done. Brokering these relationships, these conversations and such. If you don't mind me asking, how many people are on your team?
Yeah, so in total, close to 20 people right now. Being a smaller airline, we work, I think, a bit more effective and efficient by having fewer people, especially on the alliance partnership side. And that one, I have 3 strong managers who are able to drive all the partnerships. Globally, the regions are divided into the 3 areas, and I have the 3 alliance partnership managers taking care of each of the 3 areas. Of course, the bulk of our partnerships is in Europe and Africa, so it's a bit heavier on that side, vis-a-vis US, where we have fewer partners, but hopefully we are ramping that up.
Okay. And now, much of your role revolves around managing routes and the network, like you had mentioned. So how do new routes, new networks, how do they come into KQ's transformation strategy?
Yes, thank you again, Andrew. We specifically after 2020, which was a tough time for airlines, we actually came to a standstill. We had 0 flights out of our hub, Nairobi. This is the same as most of the global airlines with a shutdown due to the COVID pandemic. We came back with a grow back better motto. The grow back better motto basically meant we want to, yes, we are growing, and yes, we're going to restart the network. We're going to restart flying, but we want to ensure we cherry pick and we look at optimization and profitability as our key drivers. So we started onboarding routes that were deemed, and we were able to project that the demand were returning to those routes. And we were able to more or less follow the demand, grow along where the passengers want to fly. And as you've seen from last year's performance, the bottom line speaks for itself. So we ended up even attaining our operational profitability in 2023. And we are on track and really working hard to ensure that we're able to attain bottom line profitability by end of this year. Also, end of last year, we became a billion dollar USD company in terms of the turnover. So those are commendable, and that's because of that strategy, transformation strategy, and they're growing back better. Of course, we are keeping a very close eye on our costs line also, and ensuring that any growth doesn't come at the expense of really high costs.
And I imagine, running an airline is, well, it's no easy task, but especially in regards to, the pandemic, international geopolitics, airlines are required to be extremely flexible, I assume. Is that correct?
Yes. We actually threw out the rule book, so we had a traditional approach before COVID. We basically had our more or less airlines are structured under twin structures, hub and spoke, where you have your main hub, and then you fly into other points, which are your spokes. And also there are airlines that do point-to-point, which are mostly your low-cost carriers, which are like EasyJet you've seen, Ryanair, where they have multiple hubs, and they're able to operate just to those points without connecting globally at one specific hub. So we threw out that rule book, and we ended up even with a mixed hybrid, simply because we are, again, following demand and trying to more or less line up our flying to where the demand is. So that we ended up flying from Mombasa direct to Dubai, which is an outlier. That means it does not come to our Nairobi hub. And we're able to service Mombasa directly to Dubai. So we've had to be very flexible, out of the box thinking. And we've been pushing the envelope in terms of just trying to be very lean also. And I'm sure we've seen out there our spend in terms of even where we used to be very big on sponsorships, we've really reduced. And we want to make sure that we do the right things first, and that is flying people effectively and efficiency.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Now, when you're choosing a new route, you had mentioned that a lot of this is based upon demand. What considerations do you take into account when considering launching a new route?
Yeah. Thank you again, Andrew. Yeah, so when we look at new growth, expansion, and opening new routes, there are key fundamentals, especially right now we have to ensure that they tick the box. The first one is the latent demand. So there should be some level of interest from the flying public in terms of wanting to move from that point to the destination that we are picking. And ideally, that translates to a break-even projection of around 12 to 24 months maximum. So we want that route to be able to stand by itself at an operating level within that 24 months window. Anything above that, yes, we do review, we rank, but then we try and find ways to bring that break even closer to our 12 to 24 months window. On top of that, especially with the developments of Kenya, the opening up of visa regime for all Africa, and I would say actually globally, Kenya is more or less visa-free. So the government-to-government relationships are critical. We will follow, and in line with just being the nation carrier, we will follow where the government-to-government relationships are very warm. And that means it makes our entry into those markets easier. It makes the support we get from the two embassies and the two governments easier. So we do tend to lean more heavy towards where the government-to-government relationships are warm. The visa regime I've already highlighted. It really defies the logic or purpose of flying to a place where people can't get access to, Kenyans specifically, and the other nationality that will be more or less getting access to Kenya. But Kenya right now is more or less visa-free with the ETA. So we are able to really look at that. We're able to look at that and grow in line with that. Sorry, my apologies. So the other thing is competition, where we really limit and watch how much of a competitive, so hyper-competitive markets we do reduce and we avoid really or manage, because also you want to enter markets that you have a bit of an advantage before the competition comes in. So we are careful in terms of the competition scope itself. And finally, and this was actually very critical for us in Maputo, Mozambique, there are airports and civil aviations that do give us rebates and are able to give us some level of support. So usually there are many airports around the world. Once we show them the intent that we want to fly there, they step in and say, we will help you with the marketing campaign. We'll give you space for your marketing within the airport, that kind of support, even rebates in terms of the aeronautical charges, so your landing navigation charges. So you're able to get some level of support, and that actually helps bring the break even closer to the 24 months. So those are critical things we do look at. As you can see, the central focus here is to ensure that we bring the route to profitability and break even as fast as possible.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And, when you were, I guess it's your role to reach out to new airports that you are looking at routes to. Is that correct?
Correct.
So how do you reach out to a new airport? I'm very curious on how do you do that. Do you just pick up the phone, or do you ask for an introduction? How does that?
Yeah. So one of the portfolios my optimization and alliance team actually does manage or look at is to ensure the area of the globe or world that they are into, that they start developing relationships with airports, not the airlines. Apart from that, also, I do attend, like this week, later actually from Wednesday this week, I will be in Windhoek, Namibia, an event hosted by Aviadev that brings in all airports or all airports that do show up, and we have one-to-one meetings. We use those forums where we are able to share the information. So we do approach the airports where we're able to share the information that we have the interests, and then we start negotiations around what package might be available for us as Kenya Airways, based on the frequencies, the size of the aircraft, etc. Many airports are very robust programs that they even give you rebates per arriving passenger. So you're able to get a right back per arriving passenger. And that basically serves also to grow the profile of the airports. So this has become a common thing, and we're able to use those forums, apart from just sourcing and directly communicating to the airports. And also during the slot, so there are a couple of airports that are slot controlled in Africa. We have South African airports. We do have Accra that are slot controlled. And we do meet in slot forums where we are able to where we're increasing frequency. So when we increase frequencies to Cape Town, we're able to get very good support from the West Grow and the Cape Town team. And we are able to approach them in those forums also. So it's a lot of work, but bottom line is just to ensure that we do not just use the off-the-shelf pricing.
Yeah, it's a lot of networking, going to conferences and such. That makes complete sense. Now, Martin, you have a new route coming up this week that you're launching
2 days.
In 2 days on Wednesday, correct?
Correct, 19th.
Perfect. And for our viewers, I have a short little video I'd like to play highlighting that route. So we'll be back right in a second.
Wheels up, it's all systems ready to go as we welcome you on board Embraer E190 as we travel to and from Maputo, Mozambique.
From our exceptional onboard services to a convenient 3 times a week schedule and ample baggage allowances, we're dedicated to make your experience seamless and enjoyable.
Our friendly crew is ready for you, but first, let us explore Maputo, our 45th destination, and give you a sneak peek of marvelous Maputo.
Book your ticket today on the Kenya Airways website or through your preferred travel agency. Your adventure awaits. See you on board.
And we're back. We're back. Thank you guys so much. Martin, I grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia on the coast, and all the clips of seafood in that video
reminds me of home a little bit. Maybe I need to go visit Maputo.
It's actually renowned for the seafood, so definitely it's somewhere you'll fit in. It really is a gem in terms of just that sea resort, the feel. And it's something that we're looking forward to finally going back to. We used to fly to Maputo just before COVID. I believe we suspended in March 2020. And this was more driven by the closures that we were experiencing at that time, more than the route performance itself. I believe at the time of our closure, we were serving Maputo, and we had a significant, and this is the demand I was talking about, significant demand specifically to East Africa. That's your Entebbe, Dar es Salaam. We are also connecting into our Zanzibars, into our Mumbai's, into our Abidjan. So there was a lot of demand, and Mumbai, of course. Mumbai is a big connection for Maputo. So we've gone back to most of those destinations, and we are really strong in terms of the frequencies we're operating, either regionally into Mumbai, where we are doing double daily. And hence, it's the right time. We feel it's the right time to go back to Maputo, which we will restart 3 times a week as of Wednesday, 19th. Yeah.
Okay. And, sorry to interrupt, Martin. I was just going to ask, why reopen after 5 years? But you kind of already answered that, in regards to, hey, the demand was coming back, times have changed. Thank God we don't live in a COVID era anymore.
Yeah. And maybe to add on to that, because the other factors that have lined up, I believe our President Ruto, did visit Mozambique. That was in August 2023 last year. He was actually given keys to Maputo City, which is the highest distinction given to any individual. And with that, it came also, we got a visa-free regime. So all people from Kenya, all people from Mozambique can enter each other's country without the requirement of a visa. That is very critical. And again, that speaks to the interests and the focus we want to look at. So the government-to-government ties have really grown. And both countries are actually signatories to Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which has seen a growth in terms of the exports and imports between Kenya and Mozambique, driven by the vast coal deposits in Mozambique. So there is a lot of positive stories between Mozambique and Kenya, and we just want to build on that. On the partnership side, we've also gotten into a code share with La Mozambique, the domestic airline, the local airline based out of Mozambique. So there are a lot of positive things that we want to build onto by going back into this destination.
Okay, well, great. And what can, passengers, both, people traveling for tourism and people traveling for business, what can they expect, out of this route in terms of equipment, service? Is there anything special being provided? Can you give us a little bit of insight into that?
Okay, so we are going back as of 19th June. That's a Wednesday. And we will fly 3 times weekly, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. We will operate, it's a 4-hour flight, so we will operate using the Embraer E190, which has 12 business class seats and 84 economy seats. We will be departing Nairobi at around 9 a.m., 9:50 a.m. To reach there at 1300. That's just 1 p.m. And then we'll be back in Nairobi by 6:45 p.m. And that will enable us to connect perfectly into places, let's say out of Maputo, into places like New York, which departs here at 11 p.m. Paris departs here at 11 p.m. China, which is big, also departs here at 11 p.m. So we'll be able to connect those new markets that we believe there will be some level of traction. So you can have your lunch in Maputo and breakfast in New York. And also, we'll connect the traditional ones, your Mumbai at 8 p.m. and Dubai at 11 p.m. So there will be, apart from just Nairobi and Maputo, we also want to offer the rest of the network to Mozambique. And that's what's more or less on offer. On board, you'll get, of course, our standard service, our hot meal for the 4 hours.
Okay. That's great to hear. And I think, in terms of Maputo and Mozambique, this really opens up a hub to the world. I don't know, kind of what the optional routes were, previously, but it seems that this is, this would speed things up for people, like you said, looking to travel to Mumbai, Paris, and such, because many of those international destinations oftentimes don't fly directly into Maputo, I'm assuming.
Correct, Andrew. The connectivity index, as measured by AFRA for Mozambique, it was 44% in 2023. 44% is quite low. Most African countries are quite low. Kenya, in comparison, is at 78%, and that's because it has way more destinations in terms of either the airlines flying into Kenya or Kenya Airways itself flying out. So the index of connectivity for Mozambique is quite low. We believe this opens up the country a bit more and offers much more direct services with a one-stop via our Nairobi hub. There are places like, I will give an example here of Mombasa, which was really hard for the people from Mozambique to connect. Something as close as next door to Antananarivo, Madagascar, was quite hard for people from Mozambique to connect because they had to go to South Africa and sometimes go all the way to Reunion to come back to Antananarivo. So it was quite an interesting journey that we more or less cut in half in terms of the flight time. And of course, we're also offering very good competitive fares.
Ah, that's great to hear. And you had mentioned before we went live that I believe you're currently offering a discount for the route to Maputo. Is that correct?
Yes, thanks to Andrew and the Kenyan Wall Street. Yeah, so we will offer an extra 15% for Kenyans, for people from Kenya and people from Mozambique, buying via kq.com or buying from our shop up to end of this month, which is 30th of June. So we will offer an additional 15% for anyone who wants to just go and enjoy the seafood. As I said already, there is no visa requirement, so your costs are quite low. Just book your hotel, go enjoy the seafood, and come back.
That sounds great. And like Martin said, we have partnered with KQ, and we'll be offering this discount to our viewers, to our audience. So after this webinar, be sure to check our social media accounts, LinkedIn, Twitter, and such, for that discount information and how you can access that. Yeah, I'm really craving some seafood, Martin, so I think you may owe me. But all jokes aside, do you expect seasonality to influence this route?
Yes, Maputo is not immune to this, just as every other destination we do fly to or from. We expect a low season in October, November this year, and of course February, March next year. Hence, we're starting off a bit measured. So we're starting off with 3 frequencies on our smallest density aircraft, the Embraer, to just be able to grow into the route. I believe with the high season, at least we expect 4 good months starting in June, 4 good months of a good higher or shoulder season before we hit the low season. So we are looking at this basically at the 12 months window. We should be fine.
Ah, okay. And, beyond Maputo, are there any new routes that you're currently looking at that you can shed light on for us?
Yeah. Yes. Thanks, Andrew. I don't know how much I'll be able to reveal, but we started the year actually at 42 destinations. We are currently sitting on 45. So in February, we started actually officially flying to Mogadishu in Somalia with 3 weekly. Right now, we are up to 5 weekly, so that shows you routes do ramp up.
Significant demand for that route.
Yeah, interestingly, I believe also the reliability, the safety history, and the product itself that we do offer to Somalia is unmatched. So based on that, we are able to get even good corporate demand. Hence why we've ramped up to 5. If this keeps up, of course, we will end up going into a daily flight in Mogadishu. 25th March, we also went into our 3rd destination domestically. So after Mombasa and Kisumu, we started Eldoret with 5 weekly. That is building up. It still needs some work, but it's building up. And as of 19th of June, which is this Wednesday, we are going to Maputo. So we are currently sitting on 45. Our goal for this year is to close at 46. I won't go too much into the details of the one destination that we are looking at the end of the year, but we are looking at closing at 46. And this more or less will be in line with where we see the airline. So once you do the shuttles, you also need a long-haul destination to be able to feed and defeed your shuttle regional flying or intra-Africa flying. So we are looking at one of those long hauls. There are a couple of factors we've not fully tied in, starting from aircraft sourcing, etc., that makes it hard for me to be able to share fully the details of that route. Hopefully, knock on wood, we should be able to announce it within this summer.
That sounds good. And whenever you're ready to announce, Martin, I hope we are the first people you call to let us know. We'll be happy to share that information because it's important that we continue to not only connect Kenya, but connect Africa as a continent as a whole more and more to the world.
Correct.
Now, you had mentioned you want to end the year at 46 destinations. Is there anything else that KQ Flyers can expect over the next 1 year?
Yeah, so one of the feedbacks we've gotten, especially from our Sante Rewards, which is our loyalty program, which turns actually 1 year this month, and we have actually hit 100,000 subscribers. One of the clear feedback we've gotten from 100,000, so that's quite commendable. One of the feedbacks we've gotten, and we are of course, we've always known this, is just being more or less trended by the voice of the customer, is the need for us to stabilize and be more reliable in terms of our operations. So we really are sitting in or settling in to ensure that we stabilize and improve our reliability in terms of the flights. That's what we want to focus on for the remainder of this year in terms of just cleaning up, ensuring the schedule is something that is fully reliable and we are able to deliver the promise. That's critical because when you're building loyalty, you want to be dependable. You can't have someone you're loyal to who you can't depend on. So we have been, I know, ranked highly in terms of, in comparison to other African carriers, but being part of SkyTeam umbrella, SkyTeam carriers, we really want to be able to match global standards and be able to offer a product that you can set your clock on. Yeah, so that's one thing to really look forward to as we work with our either technical teams, our flight ops teams, to ensure that we're able to deliver that promise. And it lines up to overall motto of profitability. I believe that was Nike, the shoe company principle in 1977, when it's the same year KQ was more or less founded. Their focus, and they said, if we do the right thing, we'll make money, damn near automatic. So we really believe if we do the right thing, we have a strong brand. If we're able to deliver the promise, the bottom line, and actually even the revenues won't be something to worry about. So we just want to focus on delivering that.
I think that's good news, and I think the future's bright at KQ, and there's a lot to come in the future. In Africa, we don't have a core key single airline that connects everything and does everything. Take for example, Qatar. I think Qatar flies everywhere. Actually, I've flown within Africa where I had to fly to Qatar and then back to Africa, which that is a horrible flight. I don't recommend it.
Yeah. Andrew, with sustainability, to be fair, my history is I did spend 6 years of my life with Qatar Airways, and actually I was one of the main people was driving the growth and expansion within Africa. So to be fair, I have all positive words for Qatar Airways and what they have been able to accomplish. I believe, and I saw it was a lot of hard work as usual, but of course, hard work, the good thing with good support, a good framework, a good aviation framework leads to easier results. So it's easier for them at that level to drive those results just because they are cocooned or surrounded by a very good framework.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's, incredibly important because there's many destinations, especially here on the continent, where you can't really fly directly from many different places. I've done as simple as East Africa to West Africa, and it takes almost 3 connecting flights sometimes. So I think kind of what you and your team is working on in terms of connecting that and connecting the world is extremely beneficial, and it does definitely benefit under the Continental Free Trade Agreement as well, as you alluded to earlier. Now,
Yes, sorry.
Oh, I was going to go into a next question, but if you had a thought on that.
Yes, I believe the future is a more interconnected Africa. And yes, there is a challenge. The challenge is just basic trade, that latent demand that doesn't seem to fully exist within African countries. I've seen the challenge with our KQ freighter, where we more or less go empty one way while we are bringing goods from China to go to those countries, but nothing going on the reverse. So we have challenges where we are connecting Africa countries with each other, but then you get to discover something like Nigeria and South Africa trade more with Netherlands than with each other. So 2 of Africa's biggest economy trade more or less much more with Netherlands than each other. So that in itself proves to be a challenge. Thankfully, we have, as you mentioned, African Continental Free Trade Area that's able to encourage. And the more countries sign up to these agreements, the more we push for trade within Africa, intra-Africa, the more demand it creates, and hence we follow suit. So there is a whole ecosystem around this, and it begins from something as simple as the visa regimes, then the trade also.
Okay, great. And now for our audience who's listening, we will do a Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, please send them in the comments section on LinkedIn, and then I'll receive them on my end and, pick through which questions we think would be really informative for the audience today, because I only have a few more questions for Martin. So leave any questions you have in the comments, and we'll do our best to address each and every one of those. But back over to Martin now. Route expansion and profitability. It makes sense as a business person that, the more routes you have, the potential for profitability is more. But of course, sometimes there are routes, that may be loss leading, and then there's other routes that may be, amazingly profitable. How does the route expansion strategy tie into profitability for an airline such as KQ?
Yes, thank you, Andrew, for the question. In terms of profitability and route expansion, you are actually right. This is one case where big is beautiful. The smaller an airline is, the harder it is, because every new route, every existing route has to more or less cover its cost. The bigger the airline, you reach a point where you hit critical mass. You did mention Qatar. There are a couple of other airlines where they are able to fly into what can be seen, and most people will look at and say, what's the sense in that? But then when you look at the books, you discover a small contribution from the numerous routes end up making it profitable. So we need to bridge the gap between small to something sizable. And that at that point, that's where now you end up having the group approach and trying to even not just focus on the passenger side, but grow your freighter, grow your handling like Kenya Airways, grow your training. We have Pride Center, grow your MRO, which is your maintenance, repair and overhaul, grow those facilities so that you're able to collectively manage the routes that you need to pull up. But as it is, with only 45 destinations, it becomes quite hard for you to have all of them, but you continuously try to make them make sense. So individual route performance at an airline our size comes to sharp focus. And that's why you end up seeing we have routes where we increase frequencies over high season, reduce frequencies over low season, and try and manage that route. But when you reach a point where you have critical mass, you can more or less maintain a daily flight on every route, okay? Then the partnership strategy really does come to focus, and that is airline to airline. So you've seen us really go out and really grow our partnerships, because those partnerships now add on those individual passengers on the niche route. So you're talking about your Livingstone, you're talking about your Victoria Falls, such niche routes. We end up getting a lot of support from our SkyTeam partners, Delta on the other side. We also do get that from all our other partners, so the non-aligned partners in terms of the airlines. And that's why the partnership strategy really does make sense when you're an airline this size. You've seen the big boys don't bother too much in terms of even contracting partners, because they're able to service all those points by themselves. So for us to go into Maputo, we had to really sit down, have chats with Mozambique, and grow that into a codeshare level, such that if you land in Maputo, you're able to go to secondary cities using Mozambique. So the partnership strategy does come to share focus. And finally, in terms of profitability, you look at revenues, and then you look at the cost. So cost management, and that's an internal function. So cost management also comes to share focus, and we really try and make everything lean. With time, when you grow, we will be able to, and we are in the process of contracting partners into revenue share models to be able to offer things like Wi-Fi on board. But as it is, when you are growing to that size, you won't be able to offer that at the get-go. So you do get to a point where you're able to offer that and even take on the cost and offer it as a free service. So the more you grow, the more you're able to balance both sides. Again, the full aviation framework in terms of the government support. And government support here is just to ensure that, let's say, our government flies first and foremost Kenya Airways. Secondary, we do have partners, so we're able to sell through our government traffic into with those partners. So we have opportunities for, if we continue getting, and we are appreciative, we do, and we are getting very good government support. We also want to encourage a free and fair and balanced approach in terms of access into our country, into our city. So that ensures that airlines do not more or less do capacity dumping or predatory pricing, which is common with some airlines globally. And they also do get the same controls and measures out there. And even in their own markets, they are able to manage the same. So there is a whole ecosystem that we are able to more or less grow together, specifically with our tourists, our airports, our tourist bodies, our airport, our government, to be able to ensure profitability is attained faster. And then we can start now working towards critical mass, where we're able to grow virtually to anywhere in the world.
Okay, great. And you had mentioned when it comes to new routes, you have that 12 to 24 month period where it is the drive for profitability. Say there is a particular route that hasn't been profitable for some time. What's the decision-making process maybe to saying, hey, maybe we should rethink this, or maybe we should do fewer routes, to this destination each day? How does that decision work?
Yeah, so my team under the network team does constant reviews of such routes. So there are some routes, and they run under 3 key areas. One of them, we call it ND, which is your new destinations. But also we have FC, which is your frequency changes. So when a route has challenges, we end up really putting it under the microscope, under frequency change. Should we be operating the same number of frequencies year round? Should we be reducing them? Should we be upgauging, which is under structural change? Should we be upgauging using a bigger equipment, or downgauging using a smaller equipment? There are some routes we've even ended up consolidating, and that means you link it to somewhere else. So over low season, maybe you may link, and then delink when there's demand. So there are numerous ways where you try to really get the routes to a level where it's at least covering its own costs. Also, on top of that, you look at the partnership strategy around that destination. Are we missing a partner? Can we get more support from the airport? Can we get a rebate? So there are other ways to try, without touching the route, to try and bring it to make sense. So if we get good support from the airport authorities, we are able to get maybe a better marketing kitty, which translates to more passengers, or a rebate in terms of arriving passengers, which also means we're able to maintain our frequencies of low season. So all this just goes to trying and make a route make sense. Of course, there are routes, and you'll see this globally with all airlines, that even after you do all this, nothing works. Or let's say the poor performance is not being caused by an event that passes. Let's say like Dakar, Senegal, when they had elections, and then we witness a drop in numbers. So we knew that event, once it's stabilizing or stabilizes, the passenger numbers will come back. And true to that, right now we are doing very well in Dakar. So we do see that. So if it's not an event and the route is persistent and a performer, then because of an airline that's small or smaller in comparison to other airlines, we really need to review, and we may end up even suspending such a destination. So that's not the best approach, because it does affect negatively how the airline is viewed out there. It does affect directly the staff that we had hired there. So that's usually the last decision, and it's made at ExCom level in a company our size. So we really try and avoid that, and we try our best to make all these routes make sense.
Great. Now, Martin, we are getting some questions in, so I'd like us to tackle a few of those. So I'm putting one up on the screen here from Mr. Amondi asking, could you point out the strategy for hardware expansion, and how do you match that strategy with, route expansion? I think it's a really good question.
Yes. Thank you, Marcel. Thank you for the question. Yes, the main hardware here is physically, as you pointed out, the planes. KQ currently, as a group, has 43 aircraft, of which 34 are KQ mainline and 9 are Jumbo Jet, which is a wholly owned KQ subsidiary. We have a 10-year network plan that feeds into more or less a 5-year running fleet plan. The fleet plan lines up with where we are seeing the network is expanding to, and we are able to, or the fleet team is able to go out there, negotiate for aircraft, try and bring in aircraft in line with the expansion strategy. Because of where we are financially, this has been a bit more, I would say, carefully managed. And hence, we've not been announcing, as you've been seeing out there, an aircraft acquisition of 10, 15, 20 aircraft, but we are growing. So this year, we are envisioning, apart from narrow bodies, we're envisioning a wide body coming in either by Q4 or early into next year. That will allow us to expand a bit more. So we do have a fleet plan that more or less lines up with the demand, where we are seeing the markets growing, which lines up with our, we call it the network plan, which is a 5-year, 10-year network plan. And this is the same network plan that is used for funding, for capitalization, etc. So we do have that bit that is done by the network team here. And also we have temporary measures where we know if we have challenges with our current aircraft, our current fleet, like the 330 that we brought in to try and stabilize a bit, which is an ACMI, which basically means it's a leased aircraft, which comes fully with crew, to be able to operate. So we're able to do the fixed gap whenever we are seeing gaps. We're able to do those temporary measures, and ideally they should be temporary, and then you grow into your own fleet. Because, and this is a good story, because we are seeing a strong recovery globally of all airlines, it means we are getting pressure that it's becoming a seller's market, more or less, for the aircraft, or lessor's market for the aircrafts that we are trying to get, which makes it harder and harder to get aircraft. And that's because many airlines, as I pointed out, are really going out there and getting large units of airlines. Boeing and Airbus are backed up in terms of their production. So it's becoming a bit hard, but once you have a clear plan, a 5-year, 10-year plan, you're able to go out there and negotiate in advance. So that does help, but we know it's getting harder and harder. And I know we're talking about the hardware, but immediately you need pilots for those planes that you do bring in. It takes a while to have a pilot fully functional and flying your aircraft. So it takes a number of years in terms of either through the training process or the accreditation or actually being able to fly that specific fleet. So that is the second challenge. And because also pilots are quite fluid with the growth of specifically the Gulf carriers, we do expect attrition levels to go up. So we know we have those two challenges to deal with, which is the hardware, the aircraft itself, and more or less the software, which is our pilots to be able to man these aircraft. Also, you do not, of course, want aircraft here without pilots and hence aircraft on ground accumulating cost. So we have to ensure those two line up. There is a whole team that is behind this, trying to ensure that we're able to service the aircraft that we bring in, and we are able to actually bring in aircraft.
Okay. And Martin, this is more of a question of my own curiosity, but I know that there's quite a bit of backup with Airbus and Boeing and delivering planes. And I don't know if you're the right person, to answer this question, but how long does it take, like, to say I want to buy a Boeing 737 brand new, does it usually take 5, 6, 7 years? How early do I have to start planning ahead before I buy my 737?
Yeah, so straight out of the factory, I believe right now you're looking at a window of 6, 7 years minimum. And even that, you may end up putting money as a deposit, but then when it's supposed to come in, it ends up being delayed maybe by 8 months. Yeah. So being the kind of market we are in right now, that is a challenge. The beauty is you have the option of going and getting a brand new one, or going into the lessors market. The lessors market is the one that's servicing most of the short-term to medium-term demands, because simply the slots in the production lines are fully booked. And you have large new airlines, specifically in Saudi Arabia, that have announced their imminent arrival in the market, specifically from 2025. And they have gone out and booked and bought up all these slots. Again, small is a challenge, big is beautiful in this industry. If you try to operate out of Africa as a small airline in that global market space, it is a challenge. So you need the correct partnerships, you need very strong negotiators to be able to just get your way. Bear in mind, you're getting these aircraft, and once you place them in Nairobi, again, you start being hit by high insurance costs, etc. So you have to show a sound business, and that's why for us, profitability is a key thing, because it ensures that you get a good message or a good messaging around even your fleet plan. Hence, why we really need to focus in terms of having the right people in those kind of positions.
Okay, perfect. Now, Martin, I got one more question I want to ask. It's coming from the audience. I'll shine it up here on the screen, but what I think this question is asking from Mr. Mbugua is, revolving around more, I think, carbon credits. I believe that's what the question is revolving around. So does KQ, work or acquire carbon credits, and does it change depending on where you are flying to?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. My name is Martin. The whole discussion around sustainability is a bit sensitive, especially when you talk about carbon credits. So the way we've approached this, apart from being the first African carrier to operate a fully SAF is the sustainable aviation fuel commercial flight from Nairobi to Amsterdam. Apart from doing that and shining some level of visibility around the need for more SAF, bear in mind that SAF production is quite low. Apart from that, we are going heavy in terms of sustainability, in terms of removing single-use plastics in the company itself, the whole company, not just in the planes. I'm sure anyone who's flown of late Kenya Airways, I've seen our amenity kits. We've changed it and ensured it reflects our messaging. We are also, from a partnership perspective, and that's why I encourage you, Andrew, when you are going to South America, I'd rather fly you to South Africa and then you connect South African Airways direct to South America, vis-a-vis going the longer way via Europe, which cuts off 8 hours of your flying, hence your carbon footprint reduces. We've also are partnering with South Africa also to fly from Joburg into Perth, Australia, which also reduces, and this is more effective because we can count the mileage. We know the reduction in terms of the flying time, the reduction in terms of the fuel, what we are putting out there in the environment. So we are looking at sustainability in that angle. But as a bigger picture, as I said, Africa is really not connected. We believe aviation in itself improves sustainability of economies and people within Africa. So if you're going into Lagos, you're not going to go by train or road. You can try and tell me how that goes, but you're not going to go by train or road. These are the biggest economies. So if we are not able to connect them, if we are not able, and we are the only one who flies between Nairobi to Nigeria, if we are not able to connect them and ensure there's a consistent connection between these two large economies, that in itself negatively affects the sustainability of people within Nigeria, and same for markets and for even businesses in Kenya. So we also look at sustainability from an angle of ensuring we are able to grow African countries, African economies, by ensuring there's a link between those countries.
All right. Well, Martin, thank you so much. We're coming to the end of our session today. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention while we were on the call? I would like to remind people about the 15% discount for the flights to Maputo. We will be posting those on the Kenyan Wall Street social medias, so you can take those up. And, if you do end up flying to Maputo, please let me know how the seafood is.
Yeah. Maybe mine is to just thank the flying public, the flying mass, Kenyans, and anyone out there for being with us, for supporting us. Last year, we were able to see it from our bottom line, where we brought in $80 million in terms of the operational profitability, first time in 7 years. We are on track in terms of really growing. I think January, February, March this year, as of Kenya Tourism Board Authority numbers, there was a growth of tourist arrivals in Kenya by 23% compared to the same time last year. So we want to thank Kenyans for their sustained use of Kenya Airways, and we are going to try and really roll up our sleeves to deliver the best. I think I will end with a quote from, is it Tom Boyer, who had said, there's no Superman out there, it's up to us. So we really have to work at this. We are the ones to make this airline and Kenya as a whole fully connected and be the center point whenever you think of going anywhere within Africa, to ensure that you think of Kenya. So that's what we are working towards.
All right. Well, Martin, thank you so much for your time today, and for all of our listeners and viewers across LinkedIn and YouTube, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you found this conversation informative. As always, we're going to be doing a lot more LinkedIn webinars over the coming weeks. We'll be announcing those not only on social media, but also on the events page on our website. So if you found this conversation interesting and conversations like it, please continue to follow us so you can stay up to date with all the real tangible conversations that need to be had in Kenya's business and finance sector. Martin, again, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you to the KQ team for helping put this together, and everyone involved on the back end. And I wish everyone to have a great rest of their Monday.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, the Kenyan Wall Street team, for hosting me.
Thank
See
you.
you in
Cheers.
Maputo.
See you in Maputo.
Cheers.